We'll see Kara mute us all out in a minute.
Everyone's muted, except for me.
Go for it, Mr. Keith.
All right. Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Keith Bradford. I'm so excited about the opportunity I had this morning to try to put a few words together to say what we want to say for this wonderful speaker we're about to have. Frank Mueller, that's the name. And folks, this man has experience in life most of us don't. In business, he's had success in network marketing. He's had successful marriage. He lives in Central Florida near the coast in a beautiful place. And he's very successful with AEGEA. And Mr. Frank has a testimony that he'll share, I'm sure, today. But he also is bringing what he is labeling boot camp. Boot camp, from someone who knows all about boot camp, from the military style, after serving for many years in our military in the U.S. This man has done boot camp training in business and network marketing. He's going to do that for us today. So without me going any more, let me just please hush and say, Frank Mueller, take it away and tell us what you got for boot camp today.
Well, hey, I really appreciate that, Keith. And I do really appreciate everybody from coming on and sharing some of their time this morning. It's a beautiful day here in mid-Florida, and I'm sure it's I hope it's a beautiful day where you're all at. And you've just given up a little bit of your time to where we have the opportunity to be able to share some things with you. Now, we've alluded to sometimes a topic that we're going to talk about or what we labeled this training, and it was called boot camp. And hopefully that doesn't really scare anybody, because I like to use the military for the ability to relate to people. Whether you were ever in the military or not doesn't make much difference. You sort of know that there's a rank structure, and there's soldiers that go out and just do what they're told, and then there are corporals that may be in charge of a few people, and sergeants that are in charge of maybe 20 or 30 people, and captains that may be in charge of 200 or 300 people, and the rank goes up that way. Well, everybody, I don't care who they were, whether they are a captain now, or colonel now, or a general now, they all started out in boot camp or basic training, depending on which branch of the service you come from, what they call it. Now, what exactly does boot camp do? It sort of indoctrinates you into a lifestyle, into a business that is different than the common everyday business, but it's still a type of business. And you have in your job, if you have one or have ever had one, you have a boss. Well, guess what? When you come in the military, you got a lot of bosses, especially when you start out from the beginning. And they sort of indoctrinate you to understand, who takes the orders, who's going to give them, and how to relate to that. And they'll slowly start grooming you to go up further and further in the military rank system. Now, the neat thing, or maybe not the neat thing, is in the military, you had to spend a certain amount of time in the service to get promoted. That was number one. And then you had to spend a certain amount of time at a specific rank before you could get promoted, so that you had plenty of time there. The neat thing about network marketing is you can decide today as a brand new person that you're going to go to the top, and you're going to do it in a fraction, a minuscule amount of time compared to what it would take in the normal business world or in the military. And for that to happen, though, you've got to have some clarity. You've got to have, because clarity is power, and that power gives you focus on what you're doing. And that focus provides you leverage, because if you got clarity and you know exactly what you've got to do, and you have that focus on doing it, that's going to give you the leverage, because that leverage is what multiplies your results, your income, and your impact on other people. And so I know that that comes a little bit with goal setting and that kind of thing, but really clarity is knowing your part and what you have to do at the different levels in AEGEA, at the different levels in the military. It just works that way. The nice thing, again, you can make a whole lot more money in AEGEA than you ever did in the military if you were ever there. I can remember my first check in the military was $165. And that was less than I was making in a warehouse before I ever went into the service. And I thought, wow, this isn't any good. Anyway, with with network marketing, if you learn some simple basics and you'll do them for your entire career, there's a couple, three things that you will do your entire career. And I know we have a lot of very successful network marketers on the call today, and they'll probably tell you the same thing. You have to learn some additional skill sets and leadership and helping other people at different levels. But there are three basic things that you've got to do and you've got to duplicate. The first thing is, and we talked about this a couple of weeks ago, and I know Susie talked about it last week, is you've got to contact some people. Now, that means that you've had to create a list of people so that you could actually do that. I mean, heck, everybody should create a list. I mean, here's my multiple page list, and it works for me. Now, some people just go through their phone or on their computer or whatever, but the thing is you just got to have a number of people that you want to contact. And in contacting them, all you're doing is, whether it is on the phone and it's a 3-minute or less phone call of just being excited and telling somebody you're excited about something and encouraging them to and agree to look at something, or whether you're doing it face-to-face with somebody. And there's all kinds of different skills that you could learn and what to say and how to say it. But the reality is you're going to have to focus on the person that you're talking to, whether it is, you know, Aunt Sally, or whether it's a person that you just met in Walmart or wherever you may have met that person, and try to adapt to that person a little bit. And so it's just communication skills and just simply talking to people and getting them a little bit interested in what you're excited about. And you know what? If you do that correctly and you simply say, is it okay if I call you back in a couple of days after I send you this information? And by the way, you know, I'm brand new at this, and if I'm really lucky, I can have a friend on the line with me that might be able to answer the questions better than I can in the very beginning so that I can learn at the same time. And can we do that, you know, maybe in a couple of days, like, how about Sunday afternoon after church, maybe around 3, 4 o'clock in the afternoon? Would that be good? You've got an appointment. That's all you did. You did that in 3 minutes or less, whether you're standing in front of them or whether you're on the phone. That is one thing out of the three that all of us constantly do in network marketing. We'll do it our entire career. The more you do it, the better you will get. And that is a fact. And I think that any experienced network marketer would agree with that. The more that you do it, the better you will get. And that, I think, is very, very important first step as a soldier, as a beginner, that you have to wrap your arms around, is you just need to invite. Now, what do you do after you invite? You're going to follow up with a 3-way phone call. That means that you're using maybe your sponsor, maybe somebody else upline, or heck, I use my downline on 3-way phone calls, you know? So as long as you have that third-party credibility with you, because, you know, Aunt Sally may have been the one that wiped your nose as a little kid and doesn't think that you know anything about what you're going to, you know, sharing with her. But when you get them on a 3-way phone call, and by the way, you call your person that you're doing that 3-way first. That's, you know, some people like to get the other person on the line first. I like to be on the phone first because 2 things. One, I want to know a little something about the person that I'm going to talk to so that I can maybe help establish a rapport with that person. And then the second thing is I want to hear them introduce me so that I know what they said. Real simple. And then once they've done that, once you've done your part and you've called and you've talked to the person that's doing the 3-way with you, and you've called and then you've introduced that person, Aunt Sally, whoever that might be, to your person that's doing your third party credibility for you, that's doing the three-way for you. And all you do is edify and introduce the person. It can just be a very short, simple thing saying, hey, Aunt Sally, I want to introduce Frank Mueller to you. He's been very successful in our business and knows a lot about the products and the business. And he'd be a lot better to answer your questions than I am. So, Frank, this is Aunt Susie or Sally or whatever I just said. Anyway, and then you let that person that's doing the three-way take over the call and you're quiet. Now, I want to stop here just for a moment. Realize you did a 3-minute phone call or less, or a short face-to-face introduction, just enough to sell them on looking at the information. You now called somebody that's going to be your third-party credibility. You've edified and introduced that person to your prospect, and now you're just quiet. You listen and you learn. You learn what's being said, and every person may be a little bit different. You know, sometimes it's specifically about a product. Sometimes it's about the business. Sometimes you're talking to a teacher, and sometimes you're talking to a soldier. Sometimes you're talking to somebody that's you know, been a doctor or is a doctor. So you have to treat people on those calls a little bit differently. So you're saying the same things, but maybe in a different way to establish a rapport with that person. And so all you're doing is listening and learning, because eventually you're going to be doing the third thing, which is the same thing that your expert is doing for you now. And that is being the expert for somebody else, being that third party credibility for somebody else. So after that call is underway and your third party credibility person is talking to your prospect and sharing maybe their story with them. It could be a product story. It could be a business story, whatever it might be both. And then just simply they're going to ask the person, what did they see and review? Because I know that Keith sent you the information of a little 3-4 minute video and his website to read. What did you find that interested you the most? Well, great. Maybe it was a specific product. Maybe it was they were afraid that their husband was going to, you know, not have a job a few months from now because of some scaling back in their industry or something. I did a 3-way phone call like that this past week, in fact. And so they wanted to talk about the compensation and what they would have to do to make that work for him or them. It was a young woman. Anyway, and what I did in a very short, concise way was part of this training. Can you call people and be excited about something and get them to look at something? Do you have a few friends and family members you could do that with? And yeah, you start with the people that you know, because you practice on those people. I mean, people want to immediately go out and start working in their cold market and talking to people they don't know, and that's all fine and good. But if you start with the people that you know, you'll make the mistakes with them, and they know you and they know that you don't know anything about this, and they're going to be forgiving about that. Whereas when you're doing it in a cold market, whether that's through a lead or whether that's face to face with somebody, they expect you to have answers and they expect you to be fluent. And so anyway, whatever way we're moving these people along, that's all you've got to do. And she was like, well, I can do that. I said, great. Well, could we then talk to them on a 3-way phone call where you could just simply introduce me to them and then let me do the talking and you just listen? And she was like, well, yeah, I could do that. I said, you've just, conquered 90% of what you're going to have to do in the beginning of the business. And she's like, wow. That's interesting. I got to talk to my husband about this, and can we have a follow-up call? Sure. When would you like to do that? And we scheduled that call for the next day that she was off, and would have some time to really sit down and do some dissection of what it was she would need to do and how to get started. And that's as simple as it gets. So 2 things you're always going to do in your career. You're always going to make contacts, and you're always going to do 3-way phone calls. The more you do, the faster you do them, the better you get, the quicker you'll get there. That's just it. Now let's talk about the third thing. And we're only going to touch on this a little bit. That third thing is, once you started, I like to make this like the military. When you got in, you're a private, man. You're just sort of taking direction from your sponsor and following and doing those things that they're asking you to do. And now all of a sudden it's starting to work for you, and you've got 2, 3, 4, 5. Now you got 6 people in your group. Maybe you sponsored 2 or 3, and maybe they sponsored 1 or 2. Now you're a corporal. Man, now it's time to start putting the things that you've been listening to into play. And maybe you're helping somebody front line, maybe you're helping somebody down line, and you're becoming that third party credibility. Now, we're not going to push that on you sooner than you're ready and when you're comfortable in doing it. But know that you've got to get comfortable with it, because your sponsor, your upline is going to be doing these 3 ways, not only for you, but also for the people that you put in. Well, as that group grows and grows, they're going to need some help, eventually. So you'll have to start learning that task, how to start doing some of those 3-way phone calls. Those are the 3 things that everybody, no matter how successful in this business, do from the very beginning of their career to the very end of their career. If you can learn those 3 things, the rest of it will come in time. So what do you have to do to be successful and go up the rank structure here in AEGEA? It's real simple. Do the first 3-minute calls or the contact calls. Do the 3-way phone calls. Now, how many of those do you have to do to put people in and go up the rank structure? Well, you only need to sponsor 2 people to go to bronze right off the bat. And how many people does it take to, or contacts does it take to do that? Well, let's just say that you set a goal to make 3 contacts a day, and you can use whatever number that you're comfortable with. But let's say that you made 3 contacts a day, and in a week you did 21 of those contacts. Well, how many actually said, yes, I'll look at the information? Probably the vast majority, especially if you either knew them or you did a good job of selling them your excitement about something. The vast majority will go and look. Well, if the vast majority will go and look, then the vast majority of the people you'll be able to get back up with on a 3-way phone call with your sponsor or somebody in the upline doing the 3-way with you. Now, let's say that everybody's not very good at this in the very beginning, and you only get 10%. Let's say you got 2 of those people. That's 2 out of 21. You just went bronze and you did it that first week. Now, you may have done a lot more, may have been a lot more successful than that, but let's just say you got 2. And then you did exactly the same thing the following week. Now you're bronze elite. And by the way, you just earned an additional $100 besides the rest of the compensation plan. So now you're starting to see some real money coming in. Now that's a pretty neat thing. And all you did were some 3-minute phone calls or contacts and introduce somebody to that contact and let them help you put them in. Now, I'm sure that you're probably going to get more than 10%. But what if you did? What if that was all you did? How long would it take you to go to the top with this company? Well, a much shorter time than it would take you to go through the rank structure of the military or through corporate America or anywhere else. So it's just you having the clarity of knowing what you have to do, what your part is. And your part is the contacting and the 3-way phone calls, and then eventually helping other people with 3-way phone calls. That is all in the world that it is. Now, as you start accumulating people, you're going to have a couple of different groups of people. You're going to have some people that just want to use the product and they're not going to share it with other people. Although down the road, and they continue to have good results with the products, they may very well share it with somebody else, and you let them know that you'll be glad to help them do that. The other group of people, though, that you have are what we call builders, people that want to do exactly the same thing as you. They want to create an income. They want to create a residual income. That's what we're talking about here, residual. We're not talking about a paycheck on a weekly basis. We're talking about creating a residual income, and that is extreme power in any financial world, as far as I know. So you got to set yourself a goal. How many people am I going to talk to every day? You're a builder. Now, there's a couple of things that my people in my organizations will always know. There are two questions that I ask, and there's two questions they need to have the answer for if they're labeling themselves a builder. The first question is how many contacts did you make this past week? And the second one is, how many three-ways did you do this last week? Both with your upline and with your downline. How many did you do? Those two questions being asked of somebody that says they want to be a builder are absolutely telling as to whether or not they're doing their part, and they're going to know it. And if they say, well, I'm doing 3 contacts a day, but I haven't done any three-ways, you got to sort of figure out why that's happening. Is it maybe the person isn't doing a very good job of contacting and inviting, and you can work and role play with them a little bit? Or are they sort of fooling you and them, and they're really not doing it? Now, either is a possibility. So you work with them as though they're really trying. But week after week, you're going to start seeing the improvement in that person, or you're going to see the same thing. So you start to adjust the time frames that you're working with people. And you know, if you have people out there, let's say you have 3 people that say they want to build, and one of them is just not doing any three-ways, but they say they're doing the contacts, and you've worked with them, but the other 2 have got good numbers. Where are you going to spend your time? You have no choice. You have to help those that are helping themselves. You absolutely have to do that. And that's the point of this business, is that that's the next thing you learn, is you learn to help those that are helping themselves, that are doing the deal. So with that being said, do the contacts, do the three-ways, learn how to do a three-way. Those are very important. Then you have to plug the people in that you get into a pattern or system, depending on which way you want to call it. And that pattern is nothing more than, what do I do to advance my business? Well, what did you just do? Teach them how to contact, how to do three-ways. And that's it. That in the beginning, that's it. You get them into that pattern. You know, and if you don't feel comfortable teaching it, these kind of trainings are kept in an archive on the AEGEA YouTube deal, so you can have them go and look at a video that can help them learn exactly that pattern. And if you can duplicate this pattern of contacting, inviting, three-way phone calls, and learning how to do them yourself, guess what? You got a business that will absolutely grow. And it's a lot of fun to work with people that do what they said they would do long after the thought of how excited they were at the time, and they said they were going to do it. The commitment is doing the thing you said you would do long after that has passed, and that excitement has passed, and now you're just doing it. If you learn that and get clarity of mind straight on it, you will do extremely well in network marketing. And you couldn't find a better company to work in network marketing than AEGEA. AEGEA is going to break records of companies that have been around for many years. And you know what? You just got to decide, am I going to be a part of that? Am I going to be a large part or a small part? Am I going to look back a year from now and say, I wished I had done this and then get started? Or are you going to look back a year in reverse and say, I'm really glad I was a part and I did some building? And now I'm a platinum elite. And now I'm doing trainings for the company. And now I'm doing trainings for groups of people that I'm going out and seeing. Now that is awesome. And if you'll go through that and do this, you'll make a great residual income. How fast is up to you. But you know what? Sometimes it's easier to build fast than it is slow. Depends on how hungry you are. And so with that in mind, I don't like to push trainings past about 30 minutes because I don't want to give your mind more than what your seat can endure, so to speak. Anyway, I encourage you to focus on these three things. I encourage you to teach them to your downline. I encourage people that are working with others, whether they're a corporal, a sergeant, or a colonel, to start asking these two questions. How many contacts have you made? How many three-ways have you made? It's very, very telling in your business. Anyway, we do appreciate all of the time that you've given us this morning. And I encourage you to go out and become everything that you can be. You'll have a fantastic rest of your weekend. And I hope that you got something out of this talk. Thank you. And
thank you, Frank. Super call. Have a great day, everyone. Thank you for being with us.
Thank you. Have a great day, all.
Bye-bye.